Hi, my name is Chantel, and I'd like to welcome you to Ocean City Church Mother's Day video. And to everyone out there, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers that's listening. And we just thank you for tuning in. First of all, I'd like to just thank the ladies that I have today as guests for appearing with me today, and I'm just so happy that they want to be encouraging and just tell you a little bit about raising their children and how much being a grandmother is so different than being a mother right now. So we're gonna start out with our guests, and we're gonna have them introduce themselves. We start with you.
I'm Kate, and I have two girls.
I'm Sonora. I have two boys and one girl.
And I'm Elizabeth, and I have 5 adult children and 9 grandchildren.
Wow, great, great. I have some questions for you guys. They're really easy, but I'm going to start with you, Kate. I know that you have young kids, and this is a season of your life where you're raising the young ones. Can you tell me just a little bit about, if you were a mother and you were at home with your children, how would you encourage them to, get through their day and different things like that when you're raising young kids?
Lean on the Lord, because you definitely need it. You need to just remember that He is patient with you and that you should be patient with your children and that everything's okay. There's so much grace. There's so much grace for it. When you feel like you just can't do it and you just keep messing up, just remember that there's so much grace, and He loves you, and He loves them more than you could ever even imagine to love them. So
Yes,
that makes a big difference for me, because I feel that way a lot. I'm like, oh no.
And how about you, Sonora? You have teenagers now. You're in another season of life, when raising your children. You were at the time when kids, once they turn 13, they think they know everything and want to do everything. So how do you encourage women that's at that stage in their life where they're raising teenagers?
Grace. Go easy on yourself. We don't get it right every time. Patience with them as they are in a place where they do think they know everything, but God has a way of leading us, showing us, how to humbly disagree with our children or to correct them in a way where they get it, because the world is so different now. And I still remember being a teenager, so I have to God always reminds me, he reverts back and he's like, you remember whenever you were their age? And that's something that it's humbling, but at the same time it helps me a ton.
Yeah.
It really does.
Do you find it, Elizabeth, different with having your grandkids over now, and how do you encourage grandmothers now at this stage of our season? This is our season of our lives, where we are grandparents. How do you encourage grandmothers to keep going and to be a part of their lives, and to instill, Christ in them and all that? I mean, how do you go about doing that?
I think it's really important to pray for them, and I pray for all my children every day, and I pray for all my grandchildren every day, and I just speak Jesus into their lives, that they would know Him at a young age, and that they would always stay close to Him. And we have Bible stories, little children's stories, so when they're very little, we read those stories together, and so they know right from a young age about Jesus, and it's just reminding them how much Jesus loves them and what a plan He has for their lives. And so as a grandmother, you get the opportunity to improve, and some things that maybe you didn't do as well as you wished you could have when you were raising the kids.
Yes.
So
yes.
Thank God for second chances.
I know, right? So, Sonora, do you ever think sometimes about something you may say or do that maybe your parents did when you was young, and you do it with your kids? Do you ever have those moments?
Often. There's so many times I'm like, ooh, I sound like my mom. It's always a good feeling though. Like I thought, like back in the day, and you're like, when you're a teenager, you think, oh, well, no, I'm not gonna sound like, I'm gonna do things differently. But whenever my mom would tell us guard our ear gates and our eye gates, and do not speak that. You know, don't be careful what you speak out of your mouth and different things like that. I'm like, oh, and it would drive me crazy. But now, I mean, I see myself saying the exact same thing to my kids. You know, what are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you saying? You know, and I mean, I think it's a good feeling. You know, it tickles me. It makes me laugh because we just thought we were just too cool back then to ever be like our parents. But I'm honored now. You know.
Yes. How about you, Kate?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Quite often. And I grew up in a home that we didn't go to church. So now, like Elizabeth said, being an adult and like trying to do things differently, I recognize things that my parents said to me and spoke into my life. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to speak that into my children's life. And that's God's grace. So you can view it in a beautiful way either way, because it's like, okay, the Holy Spirit is correcting me and teaching me as I go. I don't want, even if I've said it before, I don't want to keep saying it. And so, there are times when I'm just like, oh, don't want to do that again.
Do you find that you do things differently with your grandkids than you did with your kids? You know, how you do things now? You know, when they come and spend the night, you know, do you let them do things that you wouldn't let your kids do? Come on, tell the truth.
We know.
I'm the strict grandma. I always say, if you want the nice grandma, go see your other one. Well, just because I have rules. There's when the oldest 7 of them spend the night together, we have a big age difference. They go from 13 down to 5 or 4. Actually 4. So there has to be some rules in place. And I think that many of those rules are the same that I had when I was raising their parents, but I also have a little bit more patience than what I used to, and I also understand a lot more clearly now that this is just a time to enjoy. I was so busy trying to do it right and being fearful of getting it wrong that I couldn't enjoy as much as now. I'm like, I can enjoy this. You know, they're just being kids, and sometimes they're really funny and a lot of fun.
I have a question for all of y'all, and y'all tell me if you have experienced this. I don't know about you, Kate, because you only have 2, but when my mother or grandmother used to get mad at one of us and she couldn't think of our names, she'd go down the whole list until she get the right one. Do you do that?
I do that, yeah. The dog comes in there sometimes. I'm like, Ellie, Aurora, Finn. I mean, who are you?
Which one did it?
Yes.
You do that also?
Oh, for sure. Because my kids' names all sound the same. So there's Naima, Nehemiah, Nahum. And it kind of all runs together. My mom used to do it. But our names didn't sound the same. It was Sonora, Robin, Christian, Kenneth, or KJ. So, but she would mesh our names together. So it'd be Sir Robin, Sir Christian. You know, I'm like, you know your name, so you know which one I'm talking to. They'll be like, what's going on? So I'll just say, kid, and all of them will come.
Do you do that with your grandkids?
I say, if I'm looking at you, I'm talking to you. It doesn't matter what your name is right now.
You know who I'm talking to.
But it's just, you know, when you're trying to call one of them, and you can't remember which one you really want to call, and then you go through each name, you know, and one of them will probably show up.
Right.
It'll probably not be the right one, but one will always tend to show up, you know. You know, I was a mother back in the 80s. I was raising my kids back in the 80s. But
Me too.
yeah, things are so different now. I mean, the things that you watch on TV, the things you listen to on the radio, you know, is it a constant thing that you have to like watch them, you know, make sure they're not doing things like that, listening to the wrong music and all that? Is that something constantly that you guys have to check and double check all the time just to make sure, even when the grandkids come over?
I mean, for me, my girls are 2 and 7, and so we've kind of just really tried to limit any screen time, and if they do, we know what it is that we're putting on beforehand. Just because there's so much that they try to sneak into the videos and the things that if you're not sitting there watching the whole thing, they could come up to you and say something that you're like, where did you hear that? And so, I mean, some people might think that that's really strict of me, but at the same time, guard your ears, guard your eyes, guard your heart. And my girls are impressionable and they're young, and I just want to know that what they're being fed is something that's going to nurture their spirit and not kill it subliminally. So,
Right.
yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes,
we try to
true.
be pretty aware.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with that.
And you have 3. I mean, how do
Yes.
you keep up with doing that with your 3?
Okay, so I have 2 of my older 2, they have phones. I have their, I try to stay on top of their social stuff, their social media stuff. I mean, I do like the TikTok stuff and stuff like that, and that's hard. But because they have that For You page thing, I can kind of see what they're looking at, what they're going through, whatever. And I try my best, especially with them being older now and being impressionable. They want to, be cool like all the other kids, different things like that. I'm real with them. I'm like, well, you know what this is doing to you? Do you know why you feel this way? Because you're watching this, or you might have looked at that or listened to that. And speaking on more of a spiritual level, especially now that they can understand it, is super important for me. And that's the way I keep up with it. They hold each other accountable. And I think it's really important, especially like their influence circle, me being their mom, or anybody else they come into influence with, they understand that this is the way that I'm doing things with their kids. And going from there, it's not always going to be a pretty picture, because they'll be like, well, I like this person and they said they believe in God. Well, what are they talking about? What are they rapping about or singing about? And I get them to think about those sort of things. And me, I love music, and so it challenged me to even heavily myself guard my ear gates and what I watch, whatever else. And just being that example for them, because it's very, very much selfless, and we get set in our ways as adults, and it can be very humbling.
Yes, so true. Because there's so many things that's out there in the music that we don't think is harmless, but it is. And also on TV shows, even for little kids, the cartoons now, the things that they do in the cartoons now, so you really have to be very careful.
Right.
And how about when your grandkids come over? Do they get on their iPads, and do you know what they're watching, kind of keep up with that?
I usually defer to their parents, what their parents say that they're allowed to watch. And I have one little screen on my phone that's got age-appropriate games, like painting games or puzzle games for the 4-year-old. And we try to read books or play games, actually do something or bake, so that that screen time is not as much of a pull.
Yes, yeah. Do you guys do anything like as a family, just try and stay away from the phones and the iPads? What ideas do you have as far as doing that?
Well, we do. We read a lot of books. We always have books around. The girls are constantly just going and grabbing a book because that's their entertainment. And if we're not doing that, then we're outside. We spend a lot of time outside, either riding bikes or going on walks or going to the ocean or what have you, because that's entertainment. That's getting their wiggles out. That's keeping them occupied, and it's teaching them. They're learning through it. And I feel like, at least for me, growing up, TV was always on in the house. It was like background noise, always on, and that's never been what we wanted to do. It just felt more unnatural to me than just having the TV off and just enjoying them sometimes I get it as a mom, like you need them to be occupied for a minute because you have something you have to do, but I think that we try to keep them busy. That's by going outside.
What do you do with your teenagers?
Oh, okay. So they are learning how to cook. Some of them like to follow me in the kitchen. So I get their hands busy.
Mhm.
We listen to music. As far as, worship, do a lot of worshiping in the house. Kids are naturally, they love to worship, dance, sing. We'll read books together.
Mhm.
I haven't read a book to them in a while because they're much older now. So we'll all sit in the room quiet and have our own books and we'll read them. Or right now we're doing a Revelation study where we'll read a couple of chapters after dinner and we'll talk about it.
That's cool.
Thoughts, different things like that. Have our little mini Bible study and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How about you?
So maybe 4 or 5 times a year, I have the oldest 7 all come over to spend the night. I have them at all different times, during the week. One day have a couple and another day have another, and then sometimes go a week and not see them, have to go to their house and see them, that kind of thing. But one of the things that we do, that we started, was telling stories. And that is, I can make everyone behave. If I tell, they're called Merrill Kids stories, but each kid in a story gets to be featured, and they usually have some sort of heroic quality to them,
That's
where they
cute.
do the
That's
right
cool.
thing, unless that child has not been really well behaved, and then that child doesn't get featured as prominently in the story, and so that they all want to be in the story, and I never know what the story is going to be. Make it up as I go along, but for some reason they absolutely love it, and I've come to love it too. It's really
Wow.
a lot of fun.
Yes, yes. Well, I would like to thank each and every one of you guys for just letting me be able to just have a little peek into your lives, with how you're raising your children and just different things like that. And me and Grandma over here, we get to talk a lot, and we talk a lot about our grandkids. I have 14 grandkids. Well, I had 14 grandkids. One passed away, and I have 3 great grandkids. So, it's definitely a different stage for me in my life. I don't feel like I'm 80, but I don't feel like I'm 21 either. But when I'm around my grandkids, they just make me feel so happy. It just doesn't matter.
Love it.
So
Absolutely.
I would just like to thank you again, and thank you guys for tuning in. But I do have a quote that I want to leave you with, and I found this on Pinterest, and I just want to read it to you. Being a mother is the most important job, I should say, in the world. But being a grandmother, I tell you, it's the most fun. And we're going to leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you.